Right. Good morning still. My name is Bojan. Actually, my name is misspelled in the agenda, so it's with J, but it doesn't matter. I'm country director with Oxfam in Sri Lanka, and we will tell you a little bit about our work in inclusive insurance and why introduction of the blockchain platform was important to actually make it sustainable. And we're also hoping to see it reaching the scale. So unfortunately, my presentation is not so well articulated as the previous ones. But I just decided to go with a photo, and then Christoph will explain you the process behind. I will introduce you to Sri Lanka. So it's an island south of India with about 22 million people. It is exposed to regular monsoons, which means that we have extreme weather events, which very often turns into massive floodings. And in between monsoons, we are facing droughts. Climate change made it even more fun because it made it more difficult to predict, made it more intense and more frequent. So as an illustration, in the last 3 years, we had 17 disasters, out of which only one reached media. Because unfortunately, disaster happens only when it's in the media. Otherwise, you're not there. Now, why weather events are important for us? Large portion of the population is involved in agriculture. That is very much exposed to impact of weather rather. And in the same time, there are very little risk transfer mechanisms available. Or in plain language, we don't have agriculture insurance that is actually functional, which means you have large portion of population whose key income is coming from agriculture, and basically they're coming from low income segment population, which means they depend on every next cropping season. Very often they will go in depth to provide input. And if they're affected by disaster without having an insurance, this means that they're losing their key livelihood, which push them further into indebtedness and basically put them in a cycle of poverty. Now, Oxfam in Sri Lanka is working in agriculture for probably 3 decades now. We support farmers, and we consider ourselves to be very successful. And then when we were looking how we can respond to disasters, first, should we and how we respond to disasters from agricultural perspective, first what we need to overcome is our NGO reflex to treat it as a humanitarian response and rush into provision of goods. But really to start thinking in different terms. The reason for that is that because we became painfully aware that all our responses so far, humanitarian responses so far, have been very effective but short-lived. In terms of meeting immediate needs, they did the trick and people were settled. However, in making sure that they sustain their livelihood activity, that wasn't happening. This is when we start to contemplate what kind of response we need to provide. And this is where we challenge ourselves first not to think as an NGO, but rather to think how we can create an environment where sustainable risk transfer mechanism would be put in place. And the solution that we came up with is weather index insurance. That we said that we will facilitate, broker, promote, but we will not act as an insurance agent ourselves. So this was the first, and trust me, whoever worked in NGOs and tried to work with private sector, the first challenge that we have to overcome. We started working with local private insurance companies on setting up weather index insurance scheme. I'm not sure how familiar you are with particulars of the index insurance, but basically in case of weather index, You're setting up, and I made my notes to explain you this. You're setting up the automatic monitoring of weather parameter, which is assessed to be the key risk for particular crop in particular locations. And basically you operate against the thresholds. So once the thresholds are reached, so they can be below or above, insurance claim is automatically triggered and paid out. And it kind of challenged completely the insurance sector in the country, because we moved from indemnity insurance towards index insurance, and the process that we put in place was much shorter and more effective, and actually the payments were happening. And that was an amazing success. However, we also felt that if we are serious about it, we need to look at what are the key challenges and how we can make an inclusive yet sustainable business case. And then we measured what are the challenges in the system, and it was about most of the parts except the automatic weather monitoring was still done manually. Inefficiencies were amazing. Which in turn increased the transactional cost, still making issue if the insurance product is affordable or not. And when we were looking at how we can make this better and what kind of new technological solutions are available to tackle these problems, this is where we start a conversation with Etherisc and start exploring if the promise that blockchain is carrying can be articulated for our case, and how we can make sure that the blockchain works in case of inclusive insurance, contributing not just to the efficiencies of the process, but also to the trust and full transparency and inclusiveness. I'll stop here, and Christoph will take over.
Thank you, Bojan. Yeah, my name is Christoph Musenbrock. I'm one of the co-founders of Etherisc, and Etherisc is building inclusive and blockchain-based insurance for 3 years now. Maybe some of you have heard about our first product that was flight delay. It was also a parametric insurance, and actually the first case of an insurance which was working completely on blockchain, taking premiums in Ether and making payouts in Ether. Soon after we learned that some regulators had a problem with this, and that was also where we started looking out for other use cases, and we soon realized that inclusive insurance is actually a very good case for blockchain-based insurance, because we have the ability to make payments in real time. We can settle claims in a very short period of time. We can handle very small premiums, and so it's a very useful case. And of course we have also first examples of microinsurance which are data-driven, and data-driven insurance is also a very nice case for blockchain, because we don't need any human agent, which always introduces a lot of inefficiency. As soon as you have human agents, you have a lot of time lag and all this stuff. And so if you can get rid of these human agents, at least in the mass processing, then we gain a lot of efficiency. And so we built this first product, which is already live in Sri Lanka. We have now the first complete season of the so-called Yala season, one of the two major monsoon seasons in Sri Lanka. We covered about 200 farmers with a policy in collaboration with a local insurer in Sri Lanka, Sanasa, which is also somehow a cooperative organization and very deeply connected to the people. And so we processed all the policies, the complete workflow of a policy, from application, underwriting, the handling of weather data, and calculating if a claim has to be made. That has all been done using our application and using smart contracts on blockchain. So this is one of our first examples. I will now show you the effect. So it's a bit hard to read, but this is actually the result. The old process is the column here in the middle, and the new process. And we have compared the time which is needed for the involved process steps, and in nearly every category of the processes we have a high impact of efficiency. And of course there are some steps which cannot be directly addressed by blockchain. For example, awareness building. People have to learn about the whole system. They have to create trust in such a system. And actually that's an interesting thing, because we always talk about blockchain as a somehow trustless system, but people use it, they first have to trust the system. So awareness building, educating is a large part of the work, and that is also where Oxfam makes a tremendous job. They are very deeply rooted in the society and in the villages, and in every village they have a small farmers community, and Oxfam and Sanasa, they talk to these people, and the farmers organizations are actually the last mile to the farmer, because the farmer gets a lot of support from these farmers organizations, not only in insurance but also in all other aspects of their life. And so if the farmers organization recommends that they sign an insurance, then they probably will do, even if they usually do not have any other type of insurance. Insurance is a concept which is completely new to these farmers. Paying something in advance to get a payout in case of a loss is a concept which is really very difficult to understand for them. And this type of awareness building is also very important. In all the other steps, we can reduce the time significantly. For example, the collection of the beneficiary details, the farmer's data, that is reduced from days to hours. Sending of an application for a policy to the insurance company, the underwriting, policy issuance, weather data collection, that is all done, reduced from days to a nearly instant process. And so that creates also a high level of trust in the system, because every single step is digitally signed by the people who do it. For example, as a member of the farmers organization who helps in registering the data will digitally sign every record of a farmer, and so the insurance company can be sure that the people have really checked the data. And on the other side, weather data, product data is also signed by the insurance company, so the farmers organization can be sure that the insurance company will not modify the data without legitimation. Okay. So what is the role of blockchain? Summarize it. First of all, we of course automate the process and we realize efficiency gains. But on the other side, we will also be able to transfer risk along the value chain. And that is something what we do not have yet, but what we are working on, so that is the future. Because microinsurance is still an area which is very interesting. It has a potential high impact and also a high volume, but in the next years it will still be difficult to actually access this market potential. So it's very difficult to create a business case on top of it, and so we are thinking how we can create a business case. And one possible idea how we solve the problem of a business case is that we involve the whole value chain and supply chain of a product in the insurance. For example, let's take a big food company like Kraft Foods or Nestle or whatever. They are dependent on the local producers in mostly developing countries. And of course, these big food companies are sometimes not, they have not a very good image. Yeah, they are known as the big ones and the bad guys, but still they are all also working on improving the situation, because they know, for example, in Germany, if you buy a piece of chocolate, then always you have a big seal that the cacao is only from certified sources and fair trade, and so that is something which is new for some years, but it's now very common. Yeah, and so these big food companies have a high interest in showing that they are actually doing something good for the whole world. And so they are also interested in systems where they can, for example, sell goods, and a piece of the revenue will be used to support farmers, which are the producers. And on the other side, these food companies, because they are big and they are not very deeply connected to the actual producers, they need some proof that the money reaches the destination. And via blockchain, we can actually create a whole chain of proof that some piece of money which is collected in the end product will actually reach the producer in the country. And that is something which can be documented and done by blockchain. And so this is one natural next step in our roadmap.
Time's up. Time is up.
Okay. So next. Yeah, I think the rest is the role of blockchain in insurance is, of course, very manifold. Actually, insurance is always a very substantial part of any financial ecosystem, and so there are very many applications where we can potentially use a blockchain in insurance. But I think I leave it up to here and open to your questions. Thank you so much. Any questions?
Shall I put the inspiring slide? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Etherisc, and thank you, Bojan. Sorry for the spelling.
No worries.
Thank you. Yeah, if you have questions, please get in touch with them in the next couple of hours today.